All right, guys, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
We've
Thanks
got
for having us.
Lance and Scott, Scott and Lance, Lance, Scott, Scott Finklea, not to confuse any of the audience by you guys' names, but I've known you all each individually, and it took me a good couple of days after I knew y'all partnered up to like make sure I had the names right in my head because it's Lance Scott Finklea with New American Funding.
That's it.
Thanks for coming,
That's
guys.
it.
Yeah,
Scott
glad to
Square.
have you guys on the show.
Thank you.
So I'm looking forward to our conversation today. So let's talk about you guys' background. So talk to me about your background in the lending world or things along those lines so we can introduce folks to you.
Yeah, absolutely. We come with a lot of experience, over 50 years of experience. I'm heading into my 32nd year in the business.
Jeez.
I was fresh out of college. I went to work for a big bank, and that's how I ended up in the New Orleans area. I'm not originally from here. This is back in 1995, and in 98, took over the territory for a big bank. And, then 2002, I started my own brokerage and ran that for 21 years before Scott and I jumped back in the saddle together to take on this adventure.
Yeah, and you have a similar experience, so tell us about your background, Scott.
Yeah, so I graduated international marketing from UL and jumped into the finance business early on. Kind of got a feel for mortgages and really loved it, and actually jumped on with Lance. Worked with Lance for 12 years.
Really, at the bank before y'all decided to start your own thing.
Yeah, we worked together
Interesting.
for a few years, and then he opened up Integra, and I came on board with him. We worked together, I think, for 13 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And then I got to a point where I was like, man, I want to try my own thing, and he supported me the whole way. He's like, go do it, So I jumped out. I opened up Go Mortgage. I did that for 8 years. Obviously, we remained friends, and quite honestly, I got a recruiting call from New American Funding, and they had some really unique opportunities, and programs.
Yeah.
So first person I thought of was Lance. I said, hey, man, this is going to sound crazy, but I want to pick your brain on this. And, man, it once we kind of dug into it and saw what New American Funding provides, we looked at each other and went, my gosh, I think we need to make this move. And so here we are together.
And I could tell from that phone call, because if you know Scott, he's a real excitable guy, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I knew from that phone call, I said, all right, something's getting ready to change in my life. But, usually Scott's not going to call me unless he gets onto something good. And, and as we'll discuss today, it's pretty good.
Yeah, and I mean, it's interesting because being in the business for as long as y'all have been in the business for, sometimes you need a little spark to like get you re-motivated and get you back into the groove. But ever since this new program that y'all have picked up on has been, y'all figured out the game. Y'all have been on fire for pushing this out there and growing it, and I know it's making a big impact on the market that we have here, especially with the way that the market's been over the last 2 years.
Yeah, big deal.
Yeah. So tell us more about New American Funding. Like, tell us about, for a lot of people locally, they're like, I haven't heard that name before. So let's demystify that. Tell us a little bit about that company. What all do they do, and introduce people to what that looks like.
Sure. So New American Funding is new to the area, but not new to the mortgage business. We're the 17th largest lender in the nation.
That's a big deal.
It's a big deal.
Most people don't realize, first of all, how many banks lenders there are, but then to see relative to that, they're closer to the top than to the bottom. People don't realize. There's a crap ton of them out there.
Yeah, it gives us a huge reach,
Yeah.
and we're the largest female minority-owned mortgage company in the nation, which I'm very proud to say. That's phenomenal.
Yeah.
We service 98% of our loans.
Okay. So you keep them
98% of the
98%
So you
of our
keep
loans.
98% in house.
Correct.
To service them. That's a huge deal. A lot of people don't understand in the mortgage world, what that means, but that's a big deal because when you're qualifying someone, right, and you're looking at those things, it's not that I'm just getting packages off and let it leave. You guys are keeping it in house and you're servicing it.
And I think that's one of the biggest advantages, especially when you live in an impact zone like we do here. Obviously, we're dealing with hurricanes, tropical storms, and the most frustrating thing I used to hear from my former customers whenever I brokered, which means I would package it, send it off, is if they have to make an insurance claim, their loan could be sold 2 or 3 times during the claim process, and it's very frustrating. So that was one of the important things when Scott and I really took a deep dive into New American Funding is we love the fact that, one, privately held, husband and wife own us. So there's not a lot of layers of red tape. But whenever they said that they had a $71 billion servicing portfolio,
like
It's huge.
That's B.
Right, that's big
That's
numbers.
with a B, not
Yeah.
with an M, right?
B. Yeah.
Like to like. I think a lot of people don't realize how big that is, right? $71 billion being serviced, right? Like, so that's a lot of, you guys are handling a lot of volume. The company is handling a lot of volume. Like, a lot of people don't think of banks in the sense of volume, right? They just like, hey, what name do I know? Or, a lender I know. But I mean, there's something to be said about size and volume. So like, for example, tell us about like, another comparison with that. Like, for example, some local known mortgage companies, where are they running at compared to that?
Well, we have some great local mortgage companies, you know, and most of the larger ones, going back to 2024 data, late year, they're running about 450 to 600 million in fundings, which means total loans closed. Well, in 2024, we did 15.5 billion, which
So there's multiple, you're doing multiples of what a lot of the local folks are doing. It's just something, I think, as a comparison, is something to note. Because it's something to be said when someone's, handling a larger size, that means they have to have systems to be able to handle that, right? And the fact that you're keeping them in-house too, like that's a really big deal.
Yeah, I want to kind of keep everybody interested in what the difference between not only from the size in which I'll do, but also from the NAF Cash program, which we're going to get to, which I don't want to give too much information on that just yet, because I really want to keep focusing on New American Funding. And when you talk about the ability to service your loans in-house, there's two pieces to that puzzle, right? It's your client's perspective, where they know that they can get in touch with you guys and y'all help solve most of the problems that they have when it comes to the insurance, or just I'm shifted banks, I need somebody help me set up making my payments, things like that. But the second side is any loan officers that may want to join the team also don't have the competition of knowing that I'm going to do a loan, it's going to get sold to somebody else, and now that person has all of my client data that I have to compete with somebody else. There's a lot of mortgage companies now that are selling off their servicing, and the loan officers are getting kind of hung out in the wind because now all their clients' data is out there, and they're somebody else is now calling their client about soliciting refinances and all that type of stuff. So y'all don't have to deal with that, and so your customers don't have to deal with that.
It's huge,
It's huge from a production standpoint for a loan officer.
The customer retention is the biggest piece of the puzzle, right? Because when you do sell servicing off, you're letting that client profile out, and whoever's servicing the loan at a time is the one constantly marketing them on their monthly statements, and they're servicing the loan, so they're all over the client. That's a huge benefit as a loan originator, that when you're talking about 98% of your portfolio being serviced in-house, and I will tell you, our servicing department is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Top notch.
Yeah.
So then you're also able to,
to
you can also speak to quality of, care, right? The customer service that they're getting. Again, if the loan gets packaged out and sold, you're like, well, I don't know who you're going to end up with and how my customer will be treated through the life of their loan. So there's some there, there's a level that you can have confidence in the product that you're putting out there.
Yeah.
Well, and I'll tell you another great part about servicing that big of a portfolio is, as loan officers, we're consistently out in the market, mostly targeting real estate agents. That's where we get a lot of our referrals from. Well, we have New American Funding, a post-closing campaign that they run on our entire portfolio, which once a quarter, the realtor of records profile shows up on the mortgage statement. So we're keeping that agent front of mind. And 5 times a year, they're getting seasonal mailings, loan anniversary dates, major holidays. So what our whole goal is the customer acquisition is the toughest part of our business.
Sure.
And we're adding that extra little touch at the end to keep our referral partners in touch with that client they work so hard to get.
Yeah, that's great.
That's awesome.
Yep. So and again, the NAF Cash program solves a lot of problems for people, but the way that y'all push that program around town, people know y'all as the New American Funding NAF Cash program, but y'all are not just NAF Cash.
Correct.
The product, y'all have every product that everybody else has and some more. So talk about the programs that y'all are offering to other people outside of NAF Cash.
Yeah, so we got 2,300 loan programs. I mean, it's huge. Huge. We do reverse mortgages. We've got an incredible one-time close construction of perm that is second to none, 100% finance in VA, 3.5% down FHA, 5% down conventional, true one-time close. Yeah. We do reverse mortgages. We have down payment assistance programs. We do it all.
Yeah.
So if it's out there, we have it. You know, grant programs, you name it, we have it. And that's another added benefit to us as loan originators is when you do get into those niche type of options, you've got a program for them.
Yeah.
The bench is deep.
Yeah.
And before we wrap up the conversation about New American Funding, what has been the biggest impact for you guys and the biggest motivation for y'all to decide to, to close down your own business and then to join New American Funding's team? Because I think there are some people out there right now that over the last couple of years have thought, I'm a really good loan officer. I don't necessarily want to deal with the back end business operations side. I'm just going to go produce, which is what I enjoy doing the most.
And I can tell you, Jared, that's kind of my point of view. Running a business, I was the head marketer, head janitor, head payroll guy. And to be able to have the support system of New American Funding behind us and be able to go out and market. And, we've been very lucky. Me and Scott, we're very dynamic together. I mean, you've seen us around. We get excited. We get fired up. But the best part about, this, I guess, new life is, and we're going to talk about the NAF Cash program, but when Scott presented it, it's almost like cheating. We created it.
The secret sauce.
Yeah, we created it, and we're the only people that have it. And, you've seen our excitement in marketing it. And, kudos to Scott and our entire staff, Katie and Jalen. They've really supported us. And after first quarter, again, we've only been here a year. After first quarter 2024, our office was the #1 NAF Cash office in the company.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I'll say this too, and we might get into this in another segment, but having the support staff that you guys have too is second to none. I mean, Katie she's phenomenal. I mean, she's one of the best back office support staff that I've ever worked with. And I think that does a lot for y'all's team too. The top loan officers that I work with, the ones that are the most productive and enjoy their job the most, have somebody like her on the back end so that they can go run. And that person is doing what their gifts and talents are, which is making sure all the pieces are put together in a nice, organized way.
Yeah. Yeah. Our support team is second to none.
Yeah.
Katie and Jalen, without them, really, to be honest with you, we're struggling, right? I mean, they're phenomenal. It goes deeper than that. And we have a concierge department when, Katie releases the file. It's like having Katie too, Jalen too, it is so, everyone is so accountable with high level integrity, with focusing on closing ASAP on or before. Right. And so that has, and we talk about this all the time. I'm like, Lance, coming from, our history of being in the business and just the dynamics of having to deal with all the back end stuff, we all know as a loan originator, it's your fault.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's your fault, right? So regardless of how well you do, you still got to rely on your support staff. And honestly, when we take a file and we start it, we can walk away knowing that the level of service that they're getting is second to none. And that gives me such peace of mind that I can literally feel good about letting that file go and letting that move to close. Would you agree?
Yeah, and I would say, we've already talked about mine and Scott's experience, right? Obviously, with experience comes knowledge. Katie's been with us for 18 years. So, you take that knowledge and you take that experience and you put a flow together in a business platform that really I've never operated so efficiently. And I think a lot of it goes with, kind of the knowledge and experience. Knowledge, tells you that, hey, a tomato's a fruit, right? But experience tells you you're not going to put that in a fruit salad. And with all of the years of knowledge and experience,
I'm gonna have to steal that sometimes.
Yeah, it's just really right now it's a well-oiled machine, and the best part about it is we're just getting started in this market.
Yeah.
So let's break down your system a little bit more since we're already on this vein here. So talk us through. Okay, so you've got Katie that's helping. So she's been with you in that type of role for a very long time. Tell us more about what your team looks like.
Yeah. So, we've got in-house, we have Katie and Jalen. They're on our front end. So once they set up the file, submit disclosures, it's sent off to our concierge department. And I love that word, concierge. And look, shout out to Tyler. Yeah. Tyler, if you're watching, my friend, love you, brother. He is phenomenal. I'll say this. I thought I knew a lot. Right. And I thought I knew every aspect. And when Tyler came on as our regional manager, and right when we first talked to him, I was blown away by his knowledge and just he's got such a dynamic view of of the operations side of things. And when he came on board, it was already great.
Yeah.
But he just literally filled all the little gaps, and everything works just like a well-oiled machine. So from Katie to our operations to our underwriting to post-closing, I have to tell you, I'm going to use the word flawless.
Yeah. So and I understand the real estate business pretty well. Like, I understand how they deal with their day-to-day and their operations. I always am a little bit, it's not super clear to me how loan officers manage their pipeline. Because people use the word processors, assistant loan officer, underwriter, and they all everybody uses them kind of interchangeably. So, I want to make sure that any customer who's listening understands how much of a process y'all do have, because it makes the process for the title company, for the real estate agents, for the buyers, for the sellers, way more efficient. And you mentioned earlier today that one of y'all's goals is to close on time or before.
Correct.
Right? I mean, what ours is, like, one of we have the 3 C's: closing experience, closing on time, and communication. The closing on time means that we're going to make sure that we're not going to be any reason why we're going to push beyond the closing date. And so I like that we align in that way. So when you have, like, Katie and Jalen, they're processors, right? Like, they're the ones who are making sure that all the details are packaged up nice and pretty for the underwriter. So that when it gets to underwriting, it doesn't come out and there's 100 things that have to be cleared up, right?
Correct. Yeah.
And then you have your concierge service. So it sounds like, and I know Katie and Jalen are in y'all's office. Where's the concierge service come in? What do they do? What's their role?
So here's probably the best analogy I can give you. Okay, think of a soccer field. Okay, if you're familiar with soccer, you've got 11 players, right? So Scott and I, we're on the front lines. We're the strikers. We're the forwards. Our job is to put the ball in the back of the net, right? Then you have your midfielders. Midfielders can get into attacking, where they can help you on the sails.
Yeah.
That's kind of where Katie is. And Katie will roam the sidelines, play some defense, make sure she catches everything. She'll also help us attack to get the file ready.
Yeah.
Then your concierge, what we call it, is kind of like your sweeper, where they're making sure nothing gets by them. They're making sure they're pushing the ball up to the attackers.
And they got to have skills in every area.
Absolutely.
Correct.
To do that.
Yeah.
And so what our concierge does is the communication liaison, looking out for us to see if we're open up front, if we need to have the ball passed to us, or maybe there's a hard press. Maybe there's some issues with the file we missed. She can then pass it back to the defenders, who will grab everything they need. And then your goalkeeper is kind of like your underwriter, your last line of defense. But by the time the ball gets to the goalkeeper, if we've got our positions and our spacing correct, it's going to be an easy catch.
Easy catches.
We're not asking our goalkeepers to make diving catches or incredible catches. We're just asking them to make the easy catch. And that's the simplest way that I can explain our concierge service. The concierge is kind of the midfielder, sweeper, with working with Katie. And the best part about it is, and Scott, I'll let you dive into this, is the communication system we have. Remember I told you guys we were privately owned? It's husband and wife. It's probably the best mortgage duo you could ever imagine. Patty, who's the majority owner, is the wife. She's a 30-year loan officer. She gets our side of the desk.
Yeah.
Rick was a .comer. So back in the late 80s, early 90s, he developed something, I don't even know what it was, and
Software,
retired.
something like that, yeah.
He retired about 4 or 5 years out of college. Well, he met Patty and said, hey, let's bring what we have together. And I'll let Scott kind of talk about the communication, the CRM that they've developed. It's some of the most incredible stuff I've seen in the industry.
Before you get rolling, I am loving your analogies, and I think you just taught people more about soccer than they've ever known before.
Well, anybody who knows soccer,
Keep
I
going.
played soccer my whole
I
life.
followed- I followed along.
That helped me out.
It's
lot
such a
to
great
understand.
analogy when you're piecing it together.
And
in
I
a
was lucky
conversation.
enough, my daughter played soccer in college. She was a goalkeeper. So she's like, I'm not an underwriter, Dad. I'm an athletic goalkeeper.
Well, look, and something I want to pick up on, kind of going back to the system and the cohesiveness of it. So we have kind of a proprietary software that we use that is the glue, if you will, the map of our plays, our defense strategies, that everyone on the team has access to.
Okay.
So when we set up a file, we start a note system that everyone has access to, that is live, that you can see on your cell phone or on your computer. And so when we set up the file, we're setting up the file and issuing all of our notes in this system. everything from, the borrower to the realtor to the transaction to the program to, what do we foresee with underwriting, really setting a roadmap, template, play map, if you will, before we've even submitted the file. The nice thing is when we hand that file off, it speaks for itself. They just jump into that note system. They can pull it up and they can see our whole mindset. Okay, here's what I'm looking at. Here's what I need. Or let's say we got a difficult file. Here's what I'm worried about. Let's knock off this first. Let's get this addressed immediately. Yeah. Here's what I'm thinking we need. And then they can go in and basically check off all the items being done. And so if we're on the road, we get a call. Hey, where are we? Pull up on our phone. Hey, this just got done. Appraisal was ordered on 420. ETA for this is 430 or 425, whatever the case may be. Insurance has been ordered. It is absolutely amazing. Yeah. And it really eliminates the confusion of what's been done.
Yeah. It keeps your finger on the pulse.
It's the communication. And I think that the biggest feedback we get from real estate agents is that they want to be communicated with by us and by you guys to make sure that the files go on track. Because the agents at that point are just really just trying to make sure that we're hitting the goal of closing on time. And so if we can communicate well, they can focus on their attention on finding the next deal, and making sure their clients have everything they need to move out of their house and deal with all that kind of stuff. And so having that type of communication, it's like the hardest thing is whenever somebody calls Katie and Katie doesn't have the information because it's not right at her fingertips. If you can look in that file and say this is what's going on, or worst case, you guys who are going and generate new business and marketing and helping your business grow and not having easily accessible information, having to call somebody and get the information makes a huge difference.
And look, to your point, we can run around and say, hey, we communicate and we'll send you a text message whenever, something changes, right? But tying into the system that we have, the live noting system that we also have a CRM database that literally text messages everyone involved during the entire process, from the lead being referred to us to making contact, to application sent, to application received, to documents received, to scrub initiated, to scrub completed, to submitted to underwriting approved, to appraisals ordered. Hey, we're clear to close. We call it the dancing panda. Right. We're working to get to that dancing panda, man. Yeah. So you want to talk a little bit more about our CRM?
Well, yeah. And so what the CRM does is, Jared, you had mentioned it, and my experience in the mortgage industry is everything's a lot of chatter up front, right? A lot of chatter. Hey, we got a deal, got a contract, we got title order, got appraisal order, chatter. All that. Then it goes to the underwriting death spiral, where it just kind of goes dark. And you're kind of going, man, am I going into the deep abyss, or am I okay? And the last thing anybody wants to hear during the process, 2-3 weeks of dead silence is, we got a problem. That's where, and Rick had owns this CRM that sends the text messages. Best part about it is it sends it to the listing agent as well. Yeah. So everybody's involved. But on the status points of the CRM, there's no death spiral. And that's the best part about it, is there's no lack of communication. Yeah. You're constantly engaging with the borrowers, the team, agents,
the whole team. And we call the whole team all agents, right? Both listing and buyers, sides, and listing, selling, and the buyers involved. And here's the beauty we learned early on. So we developed this, if you will, communication system on how it's being submitted to the end users, right? But it's text messages. I think we can all agree, if we just sent you emails on updates, that's...
When did that change? It's so funny. It's 2 years ago, we would send a text message, somebody would be like, oh, that's unprofessional. Now it's like...
Where's that text message?
Why are you not texting me all the information? Right. Like, we get to the point where we gotta add new features to our work phones now that our staff can text message from their work phone, because everybody wants to communicate over text.
Well, I love a good voicemail that says, why are you even calling me? Hang up and just text me. Why are you leaving me a voicemail?
For sure.
So I could tell number one, that there's benefit for that, right? Imagine, so when I sell some of my investment properties, and when I'm working with an agent who's selling it for me, a lot of times we talk through the quality of the lender tied to that buyer, right? And a part of that is knowing the level of communication actually brings confidence, right? Because there's a level there that you're like, hey, the fear is you get those lenders that fall off the deep end that you're just like, well, we can't get an update. I don't care if your offers, more money if I don't know if this is actually going to cross the closing table. So I think that there's a lot that can breed confidence, especially if like the agents has said, oh yeah, I've worked with those lenders before. We get constant updates all throughout the process. I think, and I can assume that there's, mortgage originators who are listening to this and saying, man, I usually have to go send those text messages myself to try to stay ahead of the ball. And it's looking at that level of, that automation that then takes it off your plate.
Absolutely. Look, we call it accidentally close more loans, right? And it's so true. It's so true. We go to the closings, and now just from our communication, they're listing agents, which is the hardest one to get at the table to talk to you as a loan originator. Yeah, you're representing the buyer and the buyer's agent, but getting that listing agent to really dive into it. And they're telling us, oh my gosh, this communication is awesome. Let me get your card. I love this whole system. I don't have to worry. I'm getting text messages. And so for us, we're accidentally closing more loans because of it.
Yeah.
My horrible analogy is going to be when women hear men communicate more, there's like just a level of attraction. He can be a 5, he's now a, but it's like that. But it's like, man, I want that, right? Because it helps make everyone's job a lot easier, right? And so
you're the only one in this room that could have said that. So
and I don't even date men. So let's keep going with that. But I love that. I love that for you guys because I'm huge on the conversation part, like leading with that. I mean, there's so much that you can absolutely win so many more people just with your communication. And so I think that's brilliant.
Well, and I can tell you, again, I mentioned this is my 32nd year doing this until I came to New American Funding. And I know, Jared, you've closed some loans for us. You've seen it. We have listing agents throwing their cards at us saying, that's an awesome system. Obviously, we're going to talk about NAF Cash. Like, I don't know what this is. I want to know about it. And it's amazing how it just catapults and gains some momentum momentum.
Yeah. You think, you hear, especially when you're looking to make a move, maybe with another lender, oh, we've got all these great systems. And look, I can tell you, this is real experience. It's okay. It sounds great,
right?
All these systems, but getting them to plug and play properly to actually communicate and execute what you want out of it is the hard part.
Yeah.
We've already figured that out. Yeah. It's doing it. It's plug and play.
Right.
So for any loan officers that are looking out there having trouble with their CRMs or having trouble with access to programs and want to accidentally close more loans, I can tell you there's no doubt that what we have here is very special.
Yeah.
And works.
Well, let's transition to the last segment. So that we talked about y'all's history, y'all's background. Courtney put us in the direction of doing some systems and processes, which I think is going to tell a lot about y'all's team and attract not only clients, because a good team and a good process makes the process more efficient, but also having people who want to get away from the resistance or the struggle or the friction that they have with their organization. Let's talk about how y'all solve hard real estate deals. And Courtney and I love talking about hard real estate deals. We find ourselves dealing with the most difficult when it comes to title issues or lending issues or whatever it may be. Y'all have a unique way of solving problems.
Correct.
And, New American Funding is a gigantic company. We've talked about that in the prior segment. You have a lot of experience. Just you two individually as your own company and with New American Funding, you have a great team and staff and process. But let's talk about hard deals and what this NAF Cash program is and how it allows you to be creative when somebody may run into some situation. So let's start high level. What is NAF Cash and what does it do for people?
So NAF Cash, first off, is a game changer. It totally changes real estate as we know it to be. In a normal environment up until NAF Cash, if you're looking to sell to buy, typically the house you're wanting to put an offer in, that seller's not really going to accept an offer if it's predicated or if your house isn't even listed yet or there's no contract on the vacating home yet.
Yeah.
And so, early COVID, as when this program was invented by us, we own it, we created it. It is a absolute unique proprietary program that solves the messy transaction of selling to buy.
Yeah.
You want to talk a little bit about it?
Yeah. So, the best part about it is, back to its inception, 2019, when it was dreamt up by our EVP in Colorado. And you guys remember the COVID times, right? A house would go on the market for hours, not days.
Yep.
And it would have 10, 15, 20 offers, 10, 15, $20,000 over asking price. And all of our loan officers, we had all these pre-approved customers, but they all had
Houses to sell.
their wealth in their equity. So they weren't getting any deals to stick. So Milt got with Rick and Patty, pitched the idea of NAF Cash. I think about 6 weeks' time, Patty went to Washington, D.C., had it cleared by Fannie, Freddie, VA. We launched it. And so basically what it is we'll use our cash. So the agents, if their client finds a property that they absolutely love, they're now writing an all-cash offer.
Yeah.
Non-predicated.
Yeah. And I think everybody in this room knows the difference between a finance offer and a cash offer. So we basically purchase the house for them. We do the cash closing. Then the buyer gets to move in, and then they get to list their house for sale. We give them 7 days after the cash closing, and they've already moved into their new dream home, which they secured with an all-cash offer before they list their house. So they no longer have to prep for showings, leave work, gather the dogs, gather the kids.
Declutter.
And and most importantly too, guess what? Guess what real estate agents love to? They love listing a vacant home because then they can stage it, it's clean. It really releases a lot of the stress of the transaction. And so like we'd like to say is the typical real estate market or the transaction is you have to sell before you buy. Well, with NAF Cash, you can buy before you sell. And in this market, with an all cash offer, you're seeing some savings off of the list price.
So let's keep it. Let's just the basics of this. So if y'all have a client who comes to you guys and they're like, I am looking to buy a house. I haven't listed my house yet, but I want to buy something new. I do plan on listing, but I have this house that's on the market that I really want to take advantage of. They can, as long as they're approved by you guys, can make an offer with your money, New American Funding's money, and y'all will purchase that property with y'all's cash and give that person now the ability to move in and then take some time before they list their house, a couple of days. And the on the deed, on the contract, it's going to state that New American Funding is the purchaser.
Correct.
And there's agreements between you guys and them stating that if they follow the process and they get everything done, once they sell their house, they'll then purchase it from you guys pretty much, and then they'll move in.
Correct. Yeah. So it makes it a seamless transaction. And look, here's the thing. They can have their house already listed for sale that they're vacating. That is not a problem.
Yeah.
They just don't have to list it for sale until 7 days after we've paid cash for the new home. Right. And look, think about it this way. This is the biggest debacle with the mortgage industry and the real estate environment when you're selling to buy is, let's say someone says, okay, hey, I want to get pre-approved. I want to sell to buy, right? So we get them pre-approved and they go look for homes. But again, no one's really accepting a predicated offer, especially if the vacating house isn't under contract yet. So their house finally goes under contract. Well, the house that they loved,
It's gone.
that's already gone, right? So here's the pickle. The pickle is, okay, now I've got 30 days. I got to go find another home. Well, what if you can't find the home that you really love?
Yeah.
Now you got 30 days to make a decision. Are you going to settle?
Yeah.
And I'm going to guess a lot of people settle.
Well,
Or do I go rent? Right?
And then there's just the whole caveat of juggling buying while selling, right?
Yeah.
And so the fact that you guys allow them to endure the buying process, and then 7 days after that purchase, they then have to move. Then they can say, okay, now I've basically finished the buy part for the most part, right? Knowing that there's a caveat on the back end, but then now we can do the sell part and get that moving. So you're not having to juggle. I have a list of questions of people who frequently ask me, especially on the radio on WWL every weekend. So it's dealing with the public. A lot of people call in. This is one of the top ones. Courtney, how do I juggle both the buying and selling part? Because it's messy and complicated and there's not a lot of streamline. And so this sounds like not only a streamline, but it gives the buyer an upper hand because you're no longer are you making an offer that's contingent, that's a predicated offer. And it's not even a financed offer at that. Correct. It is a cash offer. Guess what cash usually gets me? Precedence and a discount sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to move your offer right to the top of the line.
Yeah, and so there's a level there that that's huge, and so I can. Is there anything else you want to say about the NAF Cash offer?
On the buyer side, I want to talk about the agent side.
So let's talk about it, because everything we've talked about so far is the mechanics, the workings of having to sell before you buy.
Yep.
Well, you don't have to be a homeowner to use NAF Cash. Okay. You can.
So that you can.
You can be a first-time buyer.
Yeah. So I'll give you a perfect example. Okay. So I have a VA client who's living in Oklahoma. Just got his transfer papers, never bought a home before, husband and wife.
So he's renting in Oklahoma?
He's renting in Oklahoma, got transferred 3-year stint. He's in the Marines, Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. So we get them approved for our VA NAF Cash program. The wife hops on a flight. This is the week after Thanksgiving. They have to be there by the 20th of December. Meets an agent up there looking at a new home. And we actually have this on one of our social media pages, to where they were looking at a new construction home. So the builder's agent was there, and you kind of heard her start asking the hot questions. Have you been pre-approved yet?
Yeah.
Have you thought about financing? And from behind, this lady's agent goes, "Oh, they're all cash buyers." And you can hear the sales rep go, "Oh, congratulations." And basically, I want to say the house was a $409,000 brand new construction house. They told her, if you can close before the end of the year, we'll dot it right now for $380,000.
Wow.
Yep.
So they went under contract. And here's the benefit in this situation for NAF Cash. They went under contract. We had a closing on the 17th of December, because we can close these in 12 days or less sometimes. But she flies back to Oklahoma. Her husband graduates from his artillery school on the 17th. They load up their U-Haul. Now, granted, we've already closed on this house that same day in Oklahoma, in North Carolina for them. Takes them 2.5 days to drive. They show up on the 19th evening at 10 p.m. The agent left the key under the door for them. They were able to spend their first night in their home without the complexities of having to wait on a closing.
Yeah.
And I can tell you how much I believe in this, because that wife I told you about, that was my daughter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's huge.
And look, I want to bring another example up, because this is such a key piece of this puzzle. There's so many different avenues, right? But this is very unique. We've got a lot of clients, a lot of consumers out there who are sitting at 2-3%, right? And rates are not there anymore.
Mm-hmm.
They're not, and we're not going to be back there probably ever,
yeah.
right? So but they're getting that itch. I want to move. Right.
I need a bigger house. I need to be something else. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'd love to know if we could figure out what that number is, because, they're wanting to do it, but they really don't want to lose their rate to just kind of settle on a home. Right. Because the problem is, and I have an example, I had a client, I want to move, but I don't want to lose my rate. But oh my gosh, I want this house.
Yeah.
NAF Cash. Mm-hmm. Let's get you approved for NAF Cash. Put an offer in. If it gets accepted, move in, then list your home. Sure enough. And so we close that transaction. So, opening the doors up to those out there that are sitting at a low rate or not sure they want to move. They're just so worried about, what if I can't get the home I want? NAF Cash solves that problem.
Yeah.
It solves it. You're guaranteed what you want before you've even listed your home technically.
Yeah. And I think from a buyer standpoint, obviously y'all made clear the benefits of it. But I want to also talk about the buyer's agent. And then I want to talk with the listing agent. Then I want to talk from the seller standpoint. Because I've seen agents and sellers all rave about the program after doing closings with you guys. So from a buyer's agent standpoint, what benefit does it offer for those types of people who are out there trying to find houses for their client and trying to time the market? And also talk about how you become a NAF Cash buyer's agent too.
Good question. So from a buyer standpoint, from a buyer's agent standpoint, the main thing is we want to get their application in up front, right? Because we're offering all cash.
Yeah.
So we're going to want to pre-underwrite the file, right? So we pre-underwrite the file, we get them approved. It only takes us a few days to pre-underwrite them, right? Now that agent is running around with a buyer for an all cash offer,
Right.
And so, as we get into a more busy season, this is going to be where NAF Cash really pokes its head out, because we've all been there. We know that when a busy season happens, you might put offer after offer after offer after offer in, and then finally have to settle on a home. And, oh, by the way, pay tens of thousands of dollars to maybe hope to win the 7th home you bid on.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
NAF Cash for a buyer's agent and a buyer allows them to put an all cash, non-predicated offer in and move their offer way to the top of the line because it's all cash with a quick close. We can close in 12 days, no problem.
Yeah.
And so then, and it also doesn't have to be the highest number. I have
Correct.
plenty of times accepted lower offers because they were cash with a quick close. It's the terms of the offer, not just the price.
I'll give you another example. So the first one I ever closed, this is such a perfect example. Lady moving from Thibodaux to St. Charles Parish, and there was a new construction home in between her mom and her sister.
Nice.
So think about the emotional standpoint on this, right?
Sure.
Well, I had her approved NAF Cash, but she's like, well, I'm going to put in a predicated offer in. Full asking price was denied, right? Wasn't accepted. Came back NAF Cash, 20 grand under asking price, closed in 12 days, builder took it.
Wow.
And so, these are real life examples of what we're experiencing.
Yeah.
So kind of to your point, not just from a convenience standpoint, but
Confidence
right now it's a
standpoint.
little bit more of a buyer's market, right? So
Yeah.
there likely could be some savings out there because you are paying cash.
Yeah.
I've sold plenty of homes over the years as a full-time investor, and I'm not looking for top dollar. I'm looking for confidence to close.
Mm-hmm. And I can
that's
tell you
huge.
too, how this impacts what we're seeing, the feedback we're getting from our listing agents. Okay. Like 70% of the people that list their home are going to purchase within a 30-mile radius, whether they're upsizing, downsizing, just want to be at a different part of town. The biggest challenge we've seen over the last couple of years is when that listing agent goes to meet with them, they're kind of hesitant because they have that 2 to 3% interest rate. And they're probably kind of like, I'm on the fence and I got to only go if I get the perfect house. Well, now these agents, we can equip them with NAF Cash. They can say, look, I understand you're on the fence, but let's do this. Let's get you approved with NAF Cash, okay? Once you're approved, like Scott said, it takes 2 to 3 days because we completely underwrite the file. So you have 100% approval. Let's pump the brakes. Let's go into a holding pattern. And if the perfect house you want hits the market, we can pounce with an all-cash offer. Then I'll list your house for sale. So NAV Cash is actually creating transactions for listing and buying agents.
Yeah. And look, to answer your question, not any agent can just offer NAF Cash to their clients.
Yeah.
They do have to get certified.
So the agents do?
They do. They have to get certified. So we
Okay.
have a
Interesting.
certification class, agent certification class, 5 days a week at different times during the week. It's free. Any agent can sign up for it, right? So I would just say, hey, get with us. We'll send you the link to get certified. Get certified. Put that notch on your belt, because here's another example. You're going to a listing appointment as an agent and you're NAF Cash certified, and the other agents, let's just say, haven't gotten NAF Cash certified. Well, when you're talking to that seller, you can say, hey, look, one of the added benefits with me is I'm a NAF Cash certified agent. I could represent you in putting an all cash offer, and technically before I've even listed your home for sale.
Yeah.
And again, the convenience and just the solitude of the, ease of use of this. It just, like I said, it levels the playing field.
For sure.
And takes all the unknown out.
Yeah. And then just to put a cherry on top of that, what are the feedback you're getting from sellers on these deals? I mean, we've been in the room with a builder and he's just like, I've never seen this before. Yeah. And also agents that represent a lot of developers, and they're like they'll call me and be like, is this legitimate? I'm like, we've closed, I can't tell you how many
Right.
at this point, and everybody has the same reaction. Like, yeah, it's almost too good to be true.
Right.
That it works out.
And I think, that's, another beautiful part about this program is, remember I mentioned when we walk into the closing booth, normally listing agents are just kind of like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Now they're like, I don't know what this is, but this was awesome. And they're throwing their cards at us. Mm-hmm. And we're able to explain the program and give them a further option. But the best part of what we're seeing too is this program is the most amazing referral creation program ever. And this is kind of generally how it goes. Our client, when somebody buys a home, what do? They're proud of it. They invite their friends and family over for a housewarming party, right?
Right.
So they're sitting around and go, okay, hey, did you sell your house over there? No, I didn't, but I used this cash program that got me my dream home. So like, what? Tell me about it. And then they'll be like, yeah, my agent is certified to represent this. You need to talk to her if you're thinking you want to go buy your dream house. Yeah. And it's creating referral upon referral for the agents who are utilizing the program.
And truly creating this, like it saves deals and it creates deals. I mean, it is truly amazing. It's happening. I mean, you've experienced it with us. Mm-hmm. I mean, as Lance mentioned, we go to the closing table. We'd love to talk to the listing agent, but they already got their contacts. But when we come with NAF Cash to the table, now they're like, this is awesome. How do we get this, going on our end?
And I think I enjoy talking to you guys about this because y'all use it as a tool and a relationship builder too. It's like everybody has relationships in this business. So y'all say, hey, look, guys, like I know you have a lender, but if you haven't run into these situations where I can solve these problems, then let me know. I'd love to help you with an NAF Cash deal. And I think that's the big point of this conversation, right? I want people to understand that this is a tool to solve problems for people. And ultimately, it's going to drive more referrals to you guys because of the fact that it does work so well. For buyers
and what you mentioned is huge. Is we can, the rinse repeat cycle of being a mortgage lender talking to real estate agents. We're always tugging on them, saying, "Give me, give me, give me." You're trying to split relationships. With this, we can truly look them in the eye and say, "Look, we have something that's good and unique. I don't need to split your relationships that you forged over the last 10, 15 years." If you have something that looks like NAF Cash would work, hey, let's do some business, and then you can go back if you want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And look, here one other thing to add. This is not a bridge loan. So early on, we were getting some feedback, oh, well, this is a bridge loan. It is not a bridge loan. This is the furthest thing from a bridge loan.
Mm-hmm. It's a purchase and a sale.
It's a purchase and a sale. Yeah. And it's all cash. Has nothing to do with the vacating property. It's all on the purchase.
Yeah. So if let's, as we wrap this up.
Well, but before you transition, the thought that came to mind is, so Alex Hermosi, business guy, marketer, right? In his book, he said, make an offer so good that people feel stupid ignoring it, or not taking it. That's what I think of. So I'll be honest, I didn't know what NAF Cash was before coming in here today. And granted, I'm not on the retail side as much, right? As a full-time investor, right? But there's a level where that's what comes to mind. It's an offer that's so good it's stupid to ignore or to not take. And so I think that that's a important thing here. Like us talking about it, like I could see that being a differentiator in that it sells itself, right? So I think that's huge.
Yeah. And so if people want to hear more about the program, obviously y'all have social media, which is a big part of how y'all market your business. But how do they get in touch with you guys?
Yeah, on our cells. You're going to put them up, I guess,
we'll put them in the show
on our
notes.
cell phones, email, text. Happy to chat NAF Cash all day long. And one thing I do want to add, we created a YouTube video that this is where I would say it was kind of a game changer for us. We found ourselves one day on the phone all week talking NAF Cash, NAF Cash, NAF Cash, NAF Cash. And it's got some moving parts, right? So we said...
like what's the fine print?
Yeah.
People are going to want to know that.
Yeah,
right?
they do.
Yeah.
And it's like, you explain it to them, but they might be driving, or they get home, they're trying to explain it to their spouse. And, we understand it, but it's hard for someone to really digest that in a phone call. So we created a YouTube video. It's 100% transparent that literally goes over every single piece of the NAF Cash program. And so what we'll do is when we talk to the clients or the agents, we give them kind of the bullet point version and say, hey, look, before we kind of dive a little bit further in, you need to watch this video. So we shoot them the YouTube video for them to watch. Call us back when you've watched the video. That was a game changer decision that we made that it paid off immensely because when they call us back, 2 questions.
Yeah.
Is this for real? Yeah. And how do I apply?
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's
well,
awesome.
Good. So, we'll definitely direct people to y'all's social media accounts. And if there's a link to that YouTube video and you want to send it to us, we'll get Allie that information so she can share that on her page so more people can learn more about NAF Cash. And I think one thing that we didn't talk a ton about today, but I do want to make this point, is that y'all are local. Y'all are in Covington, downtown Covington, right across from the beer garden. So y'all are here. You're not, national guys that are just here part-time. Y'all are here locally, and y'all are looking to grow your footprint here. So y'all are looking for loan officers in Slidell and on the South Shore and in Baton Rouge and in Hammond so that y'all can grow and add to your team. So I do know that's part of the game. And so I'm hoping that people reach out to y'all not only about NAF Cash, but New American Funding after hearing more about you guys, and then loan officers who are looking to make a move and join a great team.
That's awesome.
And it doesn't just stop, honestly, with Louisiana. Hey, they want us to develop Mississippi, get into Alabama. They've really given us kind of free reign where we can take this and help grow and get the New American Funding name out. And Scott or I we're willing, and we funded all 50 states, so we're willing to talk to LO pretty much anywhere, if they think it's a good fit, and we would love to get this footprint going.
Yeah,
cool. Well, thanks for coming on, guys. It was a great conversation today.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
A lot of fun.
Thank you for having us.
Enjoyed it.
Thank you.